Maya walked slowly through the tall gates of the shooting range. The morning sun was soft and warm on her face. Birds chirped nearby, and the smell of fresh pine trees filled the air. The place looked calm, but Maya's heart beat steady and strong inside her chest. She wasn't here to make friends or show off. She came to prove something, but not to anyone else, only to herself. She wore a simple outfit. Blue jeans, a plain white shirt, and a light brown jacket. Nothing flashy or special. A small black bag hung from her shoulder. Inside it was her rifle, the one she trusted most. Maya moved quietly, her steps slow and careful, like someone who had learned the power of patience. People in the shooting range looked at her as she passed. Some eyes were curious, some were doubtful, and a few even looked a little surprised. Maya ignored all of them. She had learned long ago that people often judge too quickly, without knowing the full story. Near the main building, a group of men were gathered, laughing and talking loudly. Among them was a tall man in a crisp uniform with shining medals pinned to his chest. His hair was gray, and his eyes sharp and cold. This was General Harrison, a man known for his strong opinions and strict discipline. The general spotted Maya as she walked by. He raised an eyebrow and smirked. "Look at this," he said to one of the men beside him. "What's a woman like her doing here? Probably just wasting time." His voice was loud enough for others nearby to hear, and a few chuckles followed. Maya heard the comment but did not turn around. She had heard worse before, and it did not bother her anymore. She knew who she was, even if others did not. She walked toward the shooting lanes, where targets were set up at different distances. The place smelled of gunpowder and metal. The sounds of rifles firing echoed softly from the far end of the range. She reached the bench and carefully took out her rifle from the bag. Her hands moved with quiet confidence. A young man nearby looked at her and whispered to his friend, "She doesn't look like she knows what she's doing." His friend nodded, watching Maya with doubt in his eyes. Maya cleaned her rifle slowly, taking her time. She checked every part carefully, making sure it was ready. To her, this was a ritual, a moment to focus, to prepare not just the weapon, but her mind. General Harrison walked over, stepping toward her with a mocking smile. "First time here, ma'am?" he asked, voice dripping with condescension. Maya looked up and met his eyes calmly. "Yes," she said simply. Her voice was soft but steady. He laughed. "Well, don't get your hopes too high. This range is for serious shooters. You might want to start somewhere easier." Maya did not respond. She only nodded politely and turned back to her rifle. She was used to people underestimating her. They never saw what she was capable of until it was too late. She loaded the rifle carefully, took her stance, and aimed at the target 100 yards away. Her breath was slow and steady. She closed one eye, focused on the bullseye, and pulled the trigger. The sound of the shot broke the quiet. Everyone turned their heads toward the target. The bullet hit dead center. A soft murmur spread across the range. The young men nearby looked surprised. General Harrison's smile faded, replaced by a thin line of doubt. Maya did not celebrate. She simply adjusted her position and fired again. Bullseye. And again. Bullseye. Her shots were perfect, each one calm and precise. The room grew quieter. The people who had laughed now watched in silence. General Harrison's eyes narrowed. He stepped closer. "Not bad," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "But don't think it means you're the best." Maya lowered her rifle and looked at him. "I'm not here to prove I'm the best to anyone," she said softly. "I'm here for myself." The general studied her face for a moment. There was something calm, something strong about her. He had seen many shooters in his time, but few like Maya. She packed her rifle back into the bag and stood up. People started to gather around, their whispers growing louder. "Who is she?" one man asked. "I don't know," another replied. "But she shoots like a pro." Maya ignored the attention. She was used to walking a path alone, where few understood what she had been through. Her mind wandered back to the past, the years of training, the long nights in the dark, waiting for the right moment. The missions she had taken on quietly, away from the world's eyes. The lives she had saved with a single shot. But none of that mattered here. Today was a new day. A new challenge. General Harrison cleared his throat. "If you're really so good," he said, "let's see how you do at longer distance." Maya smiled just a little, the first time since she arrived. "I'm ready," she said. The sun climbed higher in the sky. The air grew warmer. The shooting range waited quietly for what was next. Maya stood still, her mind clear and steady. She was ready to show the world what it meant to never judge someone by what they seemed. The sun had risen higher now, casting long shadows over the shooting range. Maya stood quietly, her fingers lightly resting on the cold metal of her rifle case. Around her, the other shooters were busy chatting and laughing, still not fully believing what they had just seen. Some exchanged glances, wondering if her perfect shots were real, or just luck. General Harrison watched her with a tight expression. He wasn't used to being challenged like this. For years, he had been the one everyone respected and feared at the range. Now, this quiet woman, who had said so little, had made him feel unsure. His pride was wounded, and that feeling was new and uncomfortable. He walked toward her, his boots crunching on the gravel. "All right, if you want to prove yourself, let's try something harder," he said, his voice firm but with a hint of curiosity. "The 500-yard target. It's no joke." Maya nodded. She didn't need encouragement. To her, this wasn't about proving anything to anyone else. It was a test she had set for herself long ago, a way to remember who she was and why she had come this far. Harrison gestured toward the far end of the range, where the target stood barely visible against the green trees in the distance. "That's your next challenge," he said. "If you can hit that target, I'll admit you're no beginner." The crowd had grown larger now, some moving closer to watch. The air felt heavier, as if everyone was holding their breath, waiting for what would happen next. Maya moved toward her bag, opened it carefully, and pulled out her rifle. She checked the sights and adjusted them for the long distance. The wind was soft but unpredictable. She could feel the slight movement on her skin and knew that this shot would need all her focus. She took a deep breath and settled into her position. Her eyes narrowed as she looked through the scope, searching for the bullseye far away. Time seemed to slow down. Her heartbeat was steady, but inside, she felt a quiet fire burning, a calm confidence born from years of training. She exhaled slowly, aimed carefully, and fired. The crack of the rifle echoed across the field. Everyone's eyes turned toward the target. The bullet hit just beside the bullseye, close, but not perfect. The crowd murmured softly. Harrison raised an eyebrow. "Not bad for a first try," he said, sounding almost impressed. "But let's see if you can do better." Maya didn't speak. She adjusted her aim, factoring in the slight wind and distance. She fired again. This time, the bullet struck right in the center. A collective gasp came from the crowd. Some shook their heads in disbelief. The young men who had mocked her earlier looked stunned. Harrison's face tightened, but he didn't say anything. Maya stayed focused. She fired a third shot, steady and sure. Bullseye again. She looked up from the rifle and met Harrison's gaze. "Is that enough?" she asked quietly. Harrison blinked, trying to hide his surprise. "You've got skill, I'll give you that," he said slowly. "But shooting isn't just about hitting targets. It's about understanding the whole picture. The wind, the distance, the light." Maya nodded. "I understand. That's why I take my time." Some of the people around began to whisper. "Who is she?" one woman asked. "She's amazing." "I've never seen shots like that," said a man nearby. "She must have years of experience." Maya didn't answer. She packed her rifle back into the bag and stood up. Her eyes scanned the crowd briefly before settling back on the target. General Harrison took a step closer. "You know," he said quietly, "I've been at this range for more than 20 years. I've seen thousands of shooters. You remind me of someone, but I can't quite place it." Maya smiled faintly, a secret smile. "Maybe because you don't know the whole story." Harrison frowned. "What do you mean?" Before Maya could reply, a middle-aged man stepped forward. His name was Mr. Carter, one of the shooting range's senior instructors. He looked at Maya with respect. "General," he said, "you might want to listen to this." Harrison turned to him, surprised. Mr. Carter continued, "Maya James is a name known by very few, but those who do know it remember her as one of the most skilled snipers in recent history. She worked quietly, on missions no one ever talked about. Saved lives in ways that no one can fully understand." The crowd grew silent, eyes wide with amazement. Harrison's face went pale. "You're Maya James?" Maya nodded. "Yes." Harrison looked down, feeling both embarrassed and respectful. "I didn't know. I never would have guessed." Maya shrugged softly. "People often judge by appearances. But skills don't always show on the outside." Harrison took a deep breath. "I was wrong to doubt you." The crowd began to clap quietly, some even cheering. Maya felt the weight of the moment, but she kept her calm. She looked back at the target and said, "Shooting is more than just hitting a mark. It's about patience, understanding, and respect for the challenge." General Harrison nodded slowly. "You've taught me something important today." Maya smiled gently. "We all have lessons to learn, no matter who we are." As the sun climbed higher, Maya prepared to leave the range. The crowd watched her with new respect. Some wanted to talk, to ask questions, but she was ready to walk away quietly. Before leaving, she turned to Harrison one last time. "Remember this: never judge someone by how they look. Real strength is often quiet." Harrison nodded. "I won't forget." Maya walked toward the gate, her steps steady and calm, just like when she arrived. Behind her, the shooting range was no longer the same place. The day had changed. And so had the people. After the surprising test at the 500-yard target, the crowd slowly began to settle back into their routines. Some shooters returned to their lanes, others gathered quietly in groups, still whispering about Maya and her skills. The general, General Harrison, stood silently for a moment, clearly processing what he had just witnessed. The moment felt heavy, like something had shifted in the air. Maya, meanwhile, remained calm. She wasn't interested in the attention or the whispers. She was here to shoot, to focus, and to remind herself of what she had done and what she could still do. The sun warmed her back as she walked toward her chosen lane again. She set down her bag and took out her rifle, the familiar weight comforting in her hands. Her fingers moved carefully, almost like they had a memory of their own, as they checked every part of the weapon. She placed the rifle on the shooting rest, closed one eye, and looked through the scope at the target set now at 300 yards. The target looked small, almost like a dot in the distance. To many, this distance would be challenging, but Maya's eyes were steady, unshaken. General Harrison watched from the side, still unsure how to react. He had seen countless shooters, and few had impressed him like this woman had. But now was the moment to see if she could do it again. If her skill was real. Maya took a slow breath, feeling the cool air fill her lungs. She thought about the years she had spent in training, early mornings, late nights, quiet moments in the forest and deserts far from home. She thought about the people she had protected, the dangers she had faced, and the silent victories she had earned. With her breath steady, she aimed carefully. The gun fired. The sharp sound echoed through the air. All eyes turned to the target. The bullet struck the center of the bullseye. A hush fell over the crowd. No one said a word. They just stared, in disbelief and respect. Maya lowered her rifle slightly and adjusted her position. She took another breath and fired again. Bullseye. Again. Bullseye. Each shot was as precise as the last. General Harrison's jaw tightened. He couldn't hide his surprise anymore. The woman he had mocked moments ago was showing a skill beyond anything he had expected. The crowd grew quiet, watching every move Maya made. The whispers stopped. For the first time, the shooting range was filled with silent respect. One of the young men who had laughed earlier stepped forward slowly, as if afraid to speak. "How do you do that?" he asked quietly. "I've been shooting for years, but I've never seen anyone so steady." Maya smiled softly, but said nothing. She knew that shooting was not just about strength or speed. It was about control, patience, and respect for the weapon and the target. General Harrison cleared his throat and walked closer. "What's your secret?" he asked, still trying to understand. Maya looked at him and said, "There is no secret. It's practice, focus, and respect." Harrison nodded slowly. "I've seen many shooters in my career, but you remind me of someone I once knew. Someone who believed that every shot mattered, no matter the distance." Maya's eyes softened. "Maybe that's why I'm here," she said quietly. "To remind myself." The general looked at her thoughtfully. "You have a calm I haven't seen in a long time. It's a rare quality." Maya stood up, packed her rifle carefully, and slung the bag over her shoulder. She felt the eyes on her, the silent questions and new respect. Before she could leave, Mr. Carter, the senior instructor, came up beside Harrison and whispered something in his ear. Harrison's eyes widened slightly, and he looked at Maya with a new understanding. "People don't always see what's hidden," Maya said softly as she walked past the group. "Sometimes, you have to look deeper." As she reached the gate, she turned briefly to look back at the range. The sunlight danced on the targets, and the wind whispered through the trees. Today had been a test, but Maya knew there were many more ahead. Her story was not yet finished. And as she walked away from the shooting range, her heart was steady, ready for whatever challenge came next. The crowd at the shooting range was still buzzing quietly after Maya's impressive shots. Some people whispered among themselves, while others stared in awe. Maya stood apart from the crowd, calm and steady. She knew her skill wasn't just luck, it was hard work, patience, and years of practice. General Harrison was watching her closely. His pride had taken a hit, but something about Maya's calm confidence made him curious. He had been a soldier for most of his life, and he understood respect when he saw it. Still, he wanted to test her, to see if her talent was real or just a flash in the pan. "All right," Harrison said, stepping forward with a serious look. "Let's take this up a notch. You've done well at 500 yards, but can you hit the target at 700 yards? The crowd grew quiet again. 700 yards was a long distance. It was difficult for even the best shooters to hit a small target so far away. The wind, the light, and the tiniest movement could change everything. Maya nodded slowly. "I'm ready." She moved toward her bag and carefully took out her rifle. The cold metal felt familiar and steady in her hands. She adjusted the scope slowly, checking the settings and calculating the distance. General Harrison watched her closely. He could see the quiet focus in her eyes. She was not nervous or afraid, only determined. The wind had picked up slightly, rustling the leaves in the trees. Maya felt the movement on her skin. She took a deep breath and let it out slowly. She took her position on the shooting bench, lying down flat to steady her aim. The target at 700 yards looked like a tiny speck far in the distance, almost invisible without the scope. She closed one eye and looked through the scope carefully. She remembered all the lessons she had learned: to watch the wind, to feel the air, to time the shot just right. Her finger rested gently on the trigger. She waited for the perfect moment. Then, with a soft but firm pull, she fired. The rifle's sharp crack echoed through the range. Everyone held their breath as they watched the target. The bullet struck just a few inches from the center of the bullseye. A murmur went through the crowd. It was close but not perfect. Maya did not move. She stayed still and waited. General Harrison's eyes narrowed. "You can do better," he said quietly. Maya adjusted her aim. She thought carefully about the wind and the distance. She held her breath again, steadying her body. She fired a second shot. This time, the bullet hit the bullseye dead center. The crowd gasped and then burst into applause. The noise was louder than before. Harrison looked surprised but nodded slowly. "Well done," he said. "You've earned my respect." Maya lifted her head and met his eyes. "Thank you," she said softly. "It's not just skill, it's understanding the challenge." Harrison smiled, but there was still something he wanted to know. "How did you learn all this? You shoot like a soldier who's been trained for years." Maya paused for a moment. She could feel the weight of her past behind her words. "I have spent many years learning. I trained hard, worked hard, and learned to be patient. Shooting is about more than just hitting the target, it's about knowing yourself." The crowd listened quietly. Some people whispered again, amazed at her words. One young man stepped forward and asked, "Have you ever been in real combat? Have you used your skill where it matters?" Maya looked at him thoughtfully. "Yes," she said. "Many times. But those stories are not for here." General Harrison nodded. "Sometimes, the greatest stories are the ones left untold." Maya packed her rifle carefully. She looked around at the crowd and then back at Harrison. "Thank you for the challenge," she said. "It helped me remember why I started." Harrison smiled warmly. "You've reminded me too that skill and respect go hand in hand." As Maya turned to leave, a few people came forward to shake her hand or ask questions. She answered quietly, always polite but never seeking attention. She knew this day was just one step. Her true journey was far from over. Outside the range, the wind blew softly. Maya took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill her lungs. She thought about the challenges ahead, both seen and unseen. But she also felt ready. Because strength, she knew, was not just about power. It was about heart. And Maya had plenty of that. The day was slowly coming to an end at the shooting range. The sky was painted with warm colors as the sun began to set behind the trees. Shadows stretched long across the benches and targets. Maya stood near the gate, preparing to leave. The events of the day still played in her mind like a quiet echo. She felt calm but aware, like something important had just started. As she walked toward her car, footsteps suddenly came from behind. Maya stopped and turned around. A man in a neat suit approached her. He looked serious but not unfriendly. "Miss James?" he asked politely. Maya nodded slowly, studying the man. "Yes. How can I help you?" "My name is Mr. Daniels," he said, showing a small badge from a government agency. "I've been watching your shooting today. Your skills are impressive." Maya's eyes narrowed slightly, but she stayed calm. "Thank you. But I don't seek attention." Mr. Daniels smiled. "I understand. But there is a reason I'm here. We have a situation where someone with your expertise is needed." Maya's heart beat faster, but she kept her face steady. "I'm retired," she said softly. "I'm not looking to get involved." He nodded. "I know. But sometimes the past has a way of calling us back. There is a mission, one that requires someone with your experience and precision. It's delicate and important." Maya looked away for a moment, thinking. The past was a part of her she rarely spoke about. But it was never far away. "What kind of mission?" she asked finally. Mr. Daniels lowered his voice. "A group is planning something dangerous, far from here. We need someone who can act quietly, carefully, and with great skill. Someone who can stop them before it's too late." Maya felt a familiar pull deep inside her. The same feeling she had years ago, when she first decided to train as a sniper, not for glory, but to protect. "I need time to think," she said honestly. "Of course," Mr. Daniels replied. "But time is short. Please consider it." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Maya standing still. The sunset light fell softly on her face as she watched him go. For a long moment, she just breathed. The quiet around her was different now. It was filled with choice and challenge. Maya looked down at her hands, feeling the weight of the day's events and the decision before her. She remembered the moments at the shooting range, the doubt in people's eyes, the surprise at her skill, and the respect she had quietly earned. But most of all, she remembered why she had trained so hard. To protect those who could not protect themselves. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She took it out and saw a message from an old friend, a simple line, "We need you." Maya closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The past was calling. And she was ready to answer. Maya sat alone in her small apartment that evening. The soft hum of the city outside was distant, almost like a quiet song. The light from the window painted warm orange patterns on the walls. She held her phone in her hand, the message from her old friend still glowing on the screen, "We need you." Her heart was heavy with memories. Years had passed since she left that life behind, the secret missions, the quiet victories, and the long nights spent waiting, always ready to act. She had tried to live a peaceful life, away from danger and the weight of responsibility. But the call today, the unexpected visitor at the range, the challenge in his eyes had stirred something inside her. Maya took a deep breath and stood up. She walked to the small table by the window and looked out at the city lights beginning to twinkle. She knew what she had to do. The world was not always safe, and sometimes people needed help in ways they couldn't ask for openly. She picked up her phone and dialed a number she hadn't called in a long time. After a few rings, a familiar voice answered. "Maya. Is that you?" It was David, her old partner and friend. "Yes, David," she said softly. "I need to talk." They arranged to meet the next morning in a quiet cafe near the edge of town. The next day, the cafe was quiet, with only a few early visitors and the smell of fresh coffee in the air. Maya sat at a corner table, her eyes calm but alert. When David arrived, he smiled but his eyes showed concern. "Maya," he said, sitting down, "it's been too long." She nodded. "I know. But I have to come back. There's something happening, something serious." David leaned forward. "We heard about the group planning something dangerous. It's bigger than anyone expected. They have resources and plans that could hurt many people." Maya listened carefully. "What do you need from me?" David hesitated for a moment, then said, "We need someone who can stop them before they act. Someone who understands strategy and can work quietly. Someone who doesn't just rely on strength but on patience and skill." Maya looked out the window, thinking of the shooting range and the challenge General Harrison had given her. This was no different. It was a test but much bigger. "I'll help," she said finally. "But I need to prepare." David smiled. "We'll support you. But Maya, this won't be easy. You'll face dangers, and the past may come back harder than you expect." She nodded. "I'm ready." Over the next few days, Maya prepared quietly. She gathered her gear, cleaned her rifle carefully, and began reviewing old notes and maps. Every detail mattered. She trained her mind and body, remembering the discipline that had kept her alive during her missions. Her neighbors noticed her quiet focus. Maya didn't talk much, but her eyes held a new determination. She was ready to face whatever was coming. Late one night, as she sat studying maps, her phone buzzed again. It was David with new information about the group, a location where they were meeting secretly. Maya felt a rush of adrenaline. This was the moment to act. When the day arrived, Maya and David drove quietly to the edge of the city, near a forested area where the group was said to gather. The sun was low, casting long shadows through the trees. Maya stepped out of the car, feeling the familiar weight of her rifle in her hands. She checked her equipment one last time. This was no longer practice or challenge. It was real. David gave her a nod. "We're counting on you." Maya smiled softly. "I won't let you down." She moved carefully through the trees, using every skill she had learned. Her eyes scanned the area, her ears tuned to every sound. In the distance, she saw the group gathered around a small building. Men and women, unaware they were being watched. Maya found a quiet spot on higher ground, hidden behind thick bushes. She settled down, raised her rifle, and looked through the scope. The target was clear. Her breathing slowed. Her finger rested lightly on the trigger. Years of training came flooding back, the quiet focus, the patience, the respect for the moment. She took the shot. The sharp crack echoed through the forest. One of the leaders dropped immediately. The group was thrown into confusion. Maya didn't move. She fired again, precise and steady, disabling another target. Chaos grew below as the group scrambled, trying to find the source of the shots. David and the team moved in quickly, capturing those who tried to escape. Maya watched, calm and steady, until the mission was complete. When it was over, she lowered her rifle and stood up. The forest was quiet again. David approached her with a smile. "You did it?" Maya nodded, feeling a mix of relief and quiet pride. "It's never easy," she said softly. "But it's necessary." As they walked back to the car, the last light of the day faded. Maya knew this was just the beginning of a new chapter. The past had returned, but she was ready to face it with skill, patience, and heart. The mission was over. The dangerous group was stopped before they could carry out their plans. The team had done their job well, thanks in large part to Maya's skill and calm focus. But for Maya, the victory felt quiet, almost personal. It was not about praise or attention, it was about doing what was right. As she sat in the car with David driving through the dark city streets, Maya thought about everything she had been through. The years of training, the moments of doubt, the challenge at the shooting range, and now this mission. It all felt connected, like parts of one story coming together. David glanced at her. "You've changed," he said softly. "You're different from the person I knew." Maya smiled gently. "Maybe. Or maybe I'm just myself now. Stronger, but still the same inside." David nodded. "You've earned respect not just because of your skill but because of who you are." Maya looked out the window. The city lights blurred as they passed. She felt tired, but also peaceful. When they reached her apartment, David stopped the car. "Rest now," he said. "We'll keep in touch. You're part of something bigger." Maya thanked him and stepped out. The cool night air wrapped around her like a blanket. She looked up at the stars and felt a quiet hope. In the following days, Maya returned to her quiet life, but something had changed. The respect she earned at the shooting range, the trust from her old team, and the feeling of purpose filled her heart. She began visiting the shooting range again, not to prove anything to others, but to remind herself of who she was and where she came from. The targets, the wind, and the stillness became a kind of meditation. Each shot was a moment of focus, a connection between past and present. One afternoon, as Maya prepared her rifle, General Harrison appeared unexpectedly. He approached slowly, a respectful smile on his face. "Maya," he said, "I wanted to say thank you. You reminded me that true skill comes from the heart, not just training." Maya nodded, feeling a warmth she hadn't expected. "Thank you, General. Your challenge pushed me to remember what matters." Harrison looked at her thoughtfully. "Maybe one day, you'll teach others. Share your knowledge and experience." Maya smiled. "I would like that." Weeks later, Maya started helping young people at the range. Many of them were beginners, unsure and nervous. She shared simple lessons: how to breathe, how to focus, and how to respect the weapon. Her calm and kindness made the students feel safe. Slowly, they learned more than just how to shoot, they learned confidence and patience. Maya found joy in teaching. It was a new kind of mission, one that helped others find their strength. One day, a young girl approached Maya after a lesson. "Thank you," she said shyly. "I never thought I could do this." Maya smiled warmly. "You can do anything if you believe and practice." The girl's eyes sparkled with hope. Maya felt a deep satisfaction, knowing she was making a difference. Maya's past was never far away, but it no longer controlled her. She had faced the challenges, answered the call, and found a new path. Her story was not about fame or glory. It was about quiet strength, respect, and the power to protect. One evening, as she packed up her rifle after a day at the range, Maya looked at the sky. The stars were bright, shining like promises. She whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning." And with a steady heart, Maya walked forward ready for whatever life would bring.